Adelaide Capital.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. I think this is our 6th digital newsletter. You'd think that we'd work out the technical difficulties before now, but thanks for joining us. We're going to do a bunch of updates with some of the companies that we work with on a monthly basis. It's been a pretty slow summer. I think everyone can attest. There's been lower volumes across the board and not as many events, but looking forward to a busier fall. Tina, what's been going on with you this summer? Anything? Vic, Vanessa?
Yeah, it's been a quieter summer. I think people are, after having a really busy summer last year, everyone's starting to take some time off, and that's been reflected in the liquidity of a lot of the names. But I think post Labor Day, we're going to have a pretty dramatic rebound.
Yeah, so we just need 1 second. We're going to kick it off with BIGG and with Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. Great to be here this morning. Excited to do our first digital newsletter. It's been busy, as I said. As you mentioned, we just put out our Q2 financials officially yesterday. We had a fantastic Q2, 4.6 million in revenue for the quarter. Our two different lines of business, Netcoins and Blockchain Intelligence Group, both saw 24 and 26% quarter over quarter revenue growth. And on an annualized basis for the company, we saw 880% year over year growth, and Netcoins specifically saw over 2,000% year over year growth. So tremendous response from the market to our businesses, both our SaaS-based product with Blockchain Intelligence Group and our trading platform with Netcoins. And then, as you mentioned, we just launched our mobile apps for Netcoins on Android and iOS, which is exciting. We have a lot of new users joining the platform, trading quickly and easily at their fingertips with all the fancy biometric logins and 2FAs and everything to keep people safe, but also trading quickly and easily. We continue to work towards getting our regulatory license for Netcoins, which we expect to get here in the next month or so. And U.S. expansion has started. We've actually hired our U.S. law firm. We're putting our regulatory components in place for the U.S. launch later this fall. And we're working on some great partnerships that we're excited to bring to the market for Netcoins for our customer base and expanding our footprint on that side of the business. With Blockchain Intelligence Group, we've been growing the sales and marketing team. We've added a couple of great new bodies with Mr. Callahan and Mr. Fasanello, both with significant U.S. government involvement and background and experience, allowing us to attack bigger contracts for our crypto forensics business. As we continue to stamp out crime in this space and help support the regulated future that we see coming. And then finally, we made a couple of great minority investments, both with WonderFi, which is a DeFi Ventures type of product and company. They're going to go public on the NEO here in the next week or so, which is great. We've been involved with Ben Samaru in that group since the early days. And then we've also invested in Zen Ledger, which is a crypto tax company leading the market out of the States. Pat Larson, great CEO, and they've got some great investors like Mark Cuban and some great relationships that we've been able to make through that particular relationship. So, we're really excited about what's going on. We're in great financial shape. We got about $73 million in the bank, combination of Bitcoin and our own fiat currency in Canadian US dollars. We're carrying, I think it's right around 430 Bitcoin on the balance sheet. We believe strongly that we're going to see a great fall run and bull run in crypto, like you talked about in the markets in general, but we won't be surprised to see Bitcoin hit $75,000 to $100,000 by the end of this year. There's incredible institutional involvement. I saw PayPal is opening up payments in the UK, I believe, with crypto and Bitcoin. Major credit card companies get involved these days, and it's exciting for the industry. And we're there to take advantage of it. And we're going to keep on building and keep on growing. That's what's been going on.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks. So I'll just ask you two quick questions. So one
Sure.
question, because I get it all the time, and so you might as well address it live. So always people asking, when are you going to look to add new coins and new product lines, and just what's your thinking around that?
Yeah, so the coins are somewhat dependent on getting the regulatory license. The regulators need to approve coins. If you weren't trying to get across the line on your license right now, you could add coins and deal with it later. But we're on the the doorstep of the license, and we want to make sure we get that done. And then they will allow us to add coins and approve them as we go. And in terms of other, products, we keep adding features into the product, every day and every week. So that'll be an ongoing process.
And then second question. So this one I was just asked this morning. So again, I thought it was just a good time to ask you. So just some questions around, you guys disclosed the 19,000 active users in Q2. Previously, you didn't really disclose your active users. So just your thoughts on, why you want to disclose it now. And is this a number that you guys are going to keep, giving quarterly to the market?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very competitive market in Canada with trading firms, so we got to be careful how much information we disclose. But as a public company, we want to keep our investors informed. So we walk a bit of a fine line there. And I think we will continue to disclose more and more information about our user base, adoption base, et cetera, as we go on a quarterly basis going forward. This was the first quarter where we did an official news release tied to our financials. The early stage tech startups require a lot of investment, and most companies just file their financial reports as they go. But it's all part of becoming a bigger company, and we'll continue to disclose more as we go here.
Okay, that's great. No, thanks for signing on and giving us your update. And you're out of time, so we'll move along.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks so much. We have Silas joining us from Healthspace. So Silas has also had an active month. We've seen a lot of news coming out of California, multiple releases. It seems like you've been busy in that state. And then also since our last update, you guys had that partnership with Unisys. And so I didn't know if you wanted to just, give us the update, kind of what you guys have been up to over the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't believe it's already August, right? So we have had a very active couple months, especially in California. So we announced and finalized a contract with Orange County, California. That was about 6 weeks ago. Most recently, we also finalized a contract with Sonoma County. And just the other week, we actually announced that we finalized or won the bid award, which means that we'll go into contract execution here over the next few weeks with Sacramento County, California. A lot of the growth that we have been talking about in terms of our sales pipeline that continues to build up, a lot of it is focused on the West Coast, and we've started to see some of the slowdowns that were due to COVID vaccine rollout and all those things that we have talked about historically. Some of the skies have parted, and we're starting to see the log jam start to move on a lot of sales, not just California specific, but really all across the US. But the West Coast was hit particularly hard by the pandemic, and it really slowed down some of our sales cycles in the first half of this year. And one of the things that we are working towards, we announced a couple of months ago, is a partnership with a company by the name of Unisys. Unisys, generally speaking, is just a large reseller of technology to government agencies. They are in all 50 states. They are in hundreds, if not thousands, of government agencies all across the US on a state and local level, which is our core bread and butter. And what they did for us in the state of Wisconsin, the Department of Health and Human Services, they wanted to sign a contract for our HS Cloud platform for data management. And they were unable to do that immediately due to budgeting constraints. They didn't want to go out to bid because the RFP process is lengthy, it's laborious. So what they did is they actually purchased our software through Unisys. There's just a vehicle that they were allowed to kind of overcome some of their internal red tape and make a direct purchase with us. Unisys kind of put us on Unisys radar. We're now working on a partnership to start to act as a joint reseller. Unisys will go into agencies on our behalf, which means they have a bigger sales bench. It's a large multi-billion-dollar company that we can actually benefit from their reach, their relationships, their existing, in the know of potential deals that we may or may not have heard of. And it will really help us actually expand our horizons into governmental markets beyond just environmental health. We did a deal with Wisconsin Department of Health and Human Services. We're already in departments of agriculture, and we're working to get into departments of code enforcement. And Unisys will definitely really help us aid in that.
Just coming back online. No, that's great. That all sounds good. A question that I had for you was, we saw that you guys recently filed a shelf prospectus. So can you guys maybe just update the market on, cash position, financing needs, and just rationale for having that filing? Yeah,
so our cash on hand sits right around $3.5 to $4 million. depending on the cycle of AR. So we would constantly have receivables coming in. That being said, when you file a prospectus like this, it doesn't, a lot of investors, assume it's an immediate fundraising signal. For us, it's one of those things that you have to have a certain amount of cash in place to file these. And we felt it was best to go ahead and put one into place that it really is meant to cut down on a lot of the lead time that it takes should we ever want to raise funds again. But it by no means is a promissory note, so to speak, that we are immediately going to market to raise funds. It was just the right timing to put one in place so that if we ever wanted to exercise it, we could do so.
Okay. No, that's great. And we appreciate the update. So things sound good.
Thanks, Victoria.
Okay. Thanks so much for jumping on. Okay, so next we have Pascal Hamlin from Bonterra Resources. So we haven't even had an update from you this summer because we didn't do the digital newsletter in July. So the last time we were talking, you had just come out with your 3 million ounce resource, but you guys have been busy and lots of news releases have been coming out with Gladiator and Barry. So can you just update everyone on what's going on up there?
Yeah, so another thing we did this summer is we converted the option agreement on the Duke property between Gladiator and Windfall. We converted that property into a JV with a Cisco 70-30. We're the operator, and a Cisco has got 30% holding on the asset. So we're going to be preparing budget in the next few weeks, and then we're going to get going on that Duke property. It's an exploration play between two great assets, Gladiator and Windfall. So that's something we kick in place in July. We filed, of course, the technical report early August on the 3 million ounces you just spoke about on the three property, Gladiator, Barry, and Mulroy. So the technical is on the technical report is on CDR. So anyone with technical interest can look at it. And as you mentioned, we've been busy drilling since the end of the spring. So we got 2 drills on the barge over at Gladiator, focusing on expansion drilling, same as Barry. Both assets we're doing expansion drilling outside the June 2021 resource. We're going to keep having news flow on that end. But more importantly, we're in the mine design right now for the PEA. So that's in place. SLR / RPA is doing the mine design. The PA is our focus right now to convert those 3 million ounces into dollar signs and see what's the best mining scenario for each asset. The PA format is going to look like 3 deposits feeding a central mill, the Bachelor Mill, that we 100% own. So that PA is ongoing, and we're going to have additional newsletter to provide the updates on the progress on the PEA.
So then timeline for the PEA still remains Q4 this year? That's
correct. Q4 of this year, the target date. But if it's done quicker, of course, it's going to be out. But I'd rather have an excellent PEA and have it delayed by a few days or weeks than having a deadline and then not having the proper PEA. The mine design is critical right now on the PEA. This is the first time there will be detailed mine design on Gladiator and Barry. Mulroy, it's further ahead on the mine design, but the Barry and Gladiator, we're going to nail down the mining method, make sure we got the right one, the right cutoff grade. So the mine engineers are very busy on that right now, but the target is still Q4, yeah.
And then is there any update on the permitting of the Bachelor Mill?
No, it's the Ministry of Environment is still progressing their assessment on the permitting requests. On our end, the engineering design is well advanced on the tilling facility in the mill to support the PEA. So, and if they have another round of questions, there won't be any problem. We'll answer them. But right now, the permitting is not on the critical path for Bonterra. The critical path is the PEA and then feasibility.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for joining us, Pascal.
Thank you, Pascal. Nice to see you, by the way. Going on to Enduro Metals, trading on the TSX Venture under ENDR and on the OTC ENDMF. Enduro has 650 square kilometers, a huge land package in the heart of the Golden Triangle. Thought I'd let the audience know that their drilling program is going very well. From what I've heard, they started a 10,000 meter drill campaign earlier this summer at Newmont Lake, and they started at the highly anticipated Chachi target. And Chachi is a really high grade copper, gold, silver system, and I think they're going to be moving on to Havana, from what I've been told. So anticipating news very soon and chasing some very high grade targets, veins, different mineralization styles on the project. And what's great about the company, or what I see, is they have very solid investor base, the CEO being one of the major shareholders, Rob McEwen. They have some really interesting technical advisors, some highly experienced guys like Alan Wilson and David Watkins. And they're at a $40 million market cap right now. So to echo Tina and Deborah in the beginning, it's been a slower summer on the desks, but let's see what happens in the fall. And also they've been very active on social media. You can catch them on Twitter, and their handle is @Enduro Metals.
Yeah, definitely. All our clients are on social media, and if anyone wants more updates, we tend to put a lot on social. So make sure to follow all the issuers, including Enduro. And I think that Tina's going to do the iFabric update. Is that right?
Yep. iFabric management couldn't make it today as well, but they did have a great fiscal Q3. Their results came out earlier in the month. They did 4.2 million revenue versus 3.2 in the same quarter last year. So that's a 29% increase. The gross margins also increased to 48% from 30% due to the change in product mix. They had a pretty significant recovery in Coconut Grove, their intimate apparel division, as a result of the stay-at-home orders that have lifted over the last few months. Net income after tax was $705,000 versus a loss of $550,000 for the same quarter last year. And they ended the quarter with $19.6 million in working capital. So they've got a lot of money in the balance sheet to help fund their future growth. And they did over 14 million in the last 3 quarters compared to 11.5 million in all of last year. So things are looking really well going into Q4, which ends September 30th. The warehouses have never been fuller, according to management. They're expecting another great quarter, and things are progressing really nicely with the company. And as I said, they've got a really great balance sheet to work with right now.
Thanks for that, Tina. So next up, we have an update with Akiba Leisman, CEO of Mako. Mako is now in full commercial production, so looking forward to an update there. Saw some nice gold nuggets on Twitter recently. So Akiba, maybe you want to give us an update, and maybe on exploration too.
Sure. Yeah, as always, we're working on 3 things simultaneously. Is getting our 500 ton per day mine, which is the highest grade open pit mine in the world, commercialized. We declared commercial production on July 1st. That date becomes somewhat important, is that we're going to be filing our Q2 financials for this following Monday. So that's going to be the last quarter we use pre-commercial production accounting. So there's a lot of moving parts that don't necessarily reflect what's actually going on over at the company right now. So we'll try to provide as much color on those numbers as possible. Q3, everything will revert to our commercial production accounting. I would consider our operations right now running at a B minus, maybe about 80% of where it needs to be. But even with that, even with some of the teething issues that we've had over at the operations themselves, we're still generating close to about $3 million per month in operating cash flow from the project, which is allowing us to fund everything. Our 2 other objectives over at the company. First and foremost, it's to get the Las Conchitas satellite deposit into a mineable form so we can begin mining that by the very end of 2022. For those that aren't familiar with Las Conchitas, it abuts our property directly to the south. The Las Conchitas area is about 6 times as large as what we have over at San Albino. We are focused on just the southern third of that area. We put out some drill holes, which were important for a couple of reasons. We were targeting an area that overlaid our most continuous and even highest grade vein called the Bayakun vein. We were drilling an area called Mango. And if we were able to find an economic vein lying and overlaying the primary Bayakun vein over at Las Conchitas, it's going to go a long way to help pay for a lot of the stripping and eventually expands the pit, make it deeper, just because we'll have the ability to mine 2 veins at once. Additionally, Las Conchitas, even though we're focused on the southern third of that deposit, there's 3 of 9 targets that have seen drilling results over the years in them, and it does look like we've extended the strike of that primary Bayakun vein, going as much as 850 meters away to the northeast. So we're going to be taking a rig and start infilling that zone. And if we're able to find a true connection between the two, Las Conchitas is going to be substantially bigger than San Albino when all is said and done. And then thirdly, and I really do think this is the most important part about the company, is that we do think that we're sitting on an orogenic gold mining belt. Now we've put a couple of series of regional prospecting results over at our concessions outside of the primary San Albino and Las Conchitas areas as far away from the mine as 21 kilometers, including on a concession that was recently granted to us by the government of Nicaragua. And we are finding continuous across multi-kilometers of potential strike, very high grade, multi-ounce intercepts. We're taking channel samples in situ and vein where we can actually have access to underground artisanal workings. That's looking from a morphological point of view, from a grade, continuous dip potential for all of these veins, almost identical to what we have over at San Albino. So we started out with a relatively small mine. It's up and running, generating a lot of cash, even though there's still room for improvement of what we're going to be doing over at San Albino. Our plan to expand operations by a factor of 2 by the end of next year is still on target. And we have only begun to scratch the surface of what we're finding on the rest of the 188 square kilometer land package that we have right now.
I think that's a pretty thorough update. Akiba, of the regional targets that you're looking at as the third prong to your strategy, what are you most excited about right now?
Well, we put out some results on 4 prospects directly to the north. One of them actually abuts the northern most part of our concession. So as the crow flies, it's about 21 kilometers away, called El Silencio. But then if you actually start moving down, we found some old, actually even current shafts. There's some small scale miners operating there right now, and they were friendly enough to allow us to go underground. We were taking samples of the vein where the overall structure looked like it was about 2.5 meters wide, and then within the actual quartz vein itself, maybe about 1 meter to 1.5 meters of 80-gram material that was just sitting in vein in situ. We were able to take the La Reforma prospect, and with a little bit of speculation, because it still eventually needs to be drilled, we are able to see pretty clearly the connection between this to another prospect to the south of about 450 meters away on strike within this 6-kilometer range of potential. All of those numbers are indicating that this could potentially be bigger even than Las Conchitas, which is right now around 6 times the size from an area perspective. Obviously, we don't have any resource over at Las Conchitas yet. We expect to have a maiden resource on that in the first half of next year. But in terms of surface area and potential, stuff that we're finding out to the north could be bigger than anything that we have elsewhere on the property right now.
That's great. Well, lots of potential there. And it is quite a sizable drill program and exploration program you're conducting this year. Can you put that in context in terms of what's previously been done on the area, both in Las Conchitas and the whole region?
Since the first drill hole on the property was put in 2010, I think there's been about 90,000 meters of total drilling between San Albino, let's call that in the low 70,000 meter range, and Las Conchitas in the mid 20,000 meter range. The drill program that we approved in February, we're a little bit behind schedule because we were waiting for the mine to be commercialized and generating the cash, which we started to do in June, so we're catching up on that. We approved initially an $8.5 million budget for 2021, which roughly equates to about 50,000 meters of core drilling. We're also going to have a quick and dirty blast hole program that will go with that. That will give us a lot of information for some of these shallow lying structures. So 50,000 meters for 8.5 million. We're kind of in the preliminary stage of scoping out what our drill program will be for next year. But it looks like it could be as much as 50% larger than that, just in terms of the number of targets. We're not really limited by areas that deserve drilling. We're limited by our infrastructure, and that includes human resources, the amount of geologists that we have to process the data, even things as simple as storing the core. It becomes a logistical challenge relative to where the infrastructure was with the company even 6 months ago to process that kind of data. So we are starting with by far the largest drill program in the company for this year, about $8.5 million. But going forward for the next couple of years, that number is going to be materially increased. And we're fortunate enough to actually have a mine that can fund everything. It funds our operations. It funds all of our G&A. It funds all of our exploration program. We'll fund all of the capital required to double production. We'll fund literally every single target that we can find on our property. Really, the only constraints at the company right now is just our ability to get rigs and process the data.
Interesting. And that 8.5 is USD?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay. Great. Well, I appreciate the update. Sounds like you're going to have a lot of results out this fall. And yeah, looking forward to that. Anything else you wanted to add, Akiba?
Yeah, so everybody should be on the lookout for Q2, the last pre-commercial production accounting early next week. I'll be available for any questions. We'll have some updated drilling on one of our direct satellite pits to San Albino, the central pit in the Ares zone that hopefully will be out next week, but certainly no later than the week thereafter. And then the news flow on the drilling will continue at pace, probably even quicker than what we've been, just because we've now expanded our drill count from 2 to 3 at site right now, and then 2 additional rigs are on the water, hopefully arriving at site in about a week and a half.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the update, Akiba. Nice to see you.
All right, great.
I think next up we have Tina, who's going to introduce Medexus.
Yeah, Ken Bonterra is the CEO of Medexus. He'll be joining us. Medexus is listed on the TSX with the ticker MDP. And it's also OTC listed with the ticker MEDXF. Hi, how are you?
I'm great, Tina. Nice to see you. I was listening to Deborah's comments and echoing what you just said. August has been anything but quiet for us, and unfortunately, some of it in the wrong direction. So we did receive, our U.S. business received a CRL, or a complete response letter, on treosulfan, which is a pretty significant drug for us. It has a potential of over 100 million peak sales US dollars. And so we received a CRL, which is basically a request from the agency to provide more information on that particular product. If you've been following what's been going on at the FDA of late, you'll know that there was an Alzheimer's drug that was approved that some people pretty severely questioned, including clinicians. And so it seems like the agency's got pretty risk adverse, and of late, more than 50% of applications have been getting CRLs, basically punting the decision down the road. And that happened to us as well. In our case, we're pleased that the CRL is really asking for additional information related to the pivotal study that's already been completed. And so there's no new clinical required. It's a matter of extracting additional data from the patient files that have already completed the study. So there's no additional cost to us. The work will be done by our partner, Medac, that conducted the clinical study. And there's no additional milestone payments, but it is a delay. And we had thought that we'd be launching this fall. So it certainly looks like it's been pushed off a year anyway. The market responded pretty severely, which kind of surprised us in that, we were trading above $7 before we ever even licensed treosulfan, and we traded well below that. It's since rebounded, and so people are starting to realize that, hey, our underlying business is about an 80 million US net revenue business that produces pretty significant EBITDA. So that underlying business really hasn't changed. We did put out our Q2 results, I guess a week ago now. and the number was a little bit lower than what we had shown previously. But I was trying to explain to investors that part of that is related to us cleaning the channel for the most recent acquisition we did, which was Ixinity, and that drug did about $30 million US. We're cleaning the channel. With the type of demand that we have, we do expect to report significantly higher net revenue numbers as we go forward. And obviously, we do think we will return to positive EBITDA now that the treosulfan spending has been pushed down the road.
Yeah, well, thanks for the update, and obviously some pretty volatile trading in the stock. I noticed that a couple of people from management were buying. I've been buying myself as well. One of the things I wanted to talk about quickly was the response from key opinion leaders based on the treosulfan CRL, because it seems like there were a lot of leaders, and particularly in the US, obviously, who are waiting for this drug to be approved. So it's quite a surprise for not just management, but also the medical community.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. They very much did expect to get the drug this fall. And had patients who were lined up expected to be put on the drug in preparation for their transplant. So that's not going to happen. There's a lot of disappointment voiced. We are looking to see if we can provide some kind of exceptional drug, emergency drug application that would get people product and would give clinicians experience with the drug in the market. So that's kind of the silver lining, that it does give us time to generate more experience. And related to your comment about the buying opportunity, I was certainly buying in the open market. I am a significant shareholder already, but at those prices, it was ridiculous. We're trading so low and so far beyond and below, what our core business is worth. So certainly was a buying opportunity. People seem to have woken up to that, and it certainly responded nicely and heading in the right direction again.
Yeah, I agree. The other piece of news was the completion of enrollment of the Ixinity pediatric trial, which is also a huge growth potential for the company.
Yeah, that's a good point. It does two things, really. It expands our label and, gives us an upside. We think of about 30% more patient opportunity, but also, will reduce our expenses pretty significantly. You can remember we were spending, I think, $2.5 million last quarter on R&D. A big chunk of that was that study. So, that's going to start to go down pretty significantly, obviously, which will just drop the bottom line when that expense goes away.
Okay, and then just quickly, we had a question from the audience about any updates on the NASDAQ listing.
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, we were expecting to have a catalyst that would support that NASDAQ listing. That catalyst, being treosulfan, looks to be delayed. So we are reevaluating what is the right strategy. We are glad we got the graduation to the TSX big board. So that helps a lot. And we are examining NASDAQ and what the strategy is there.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Ken, for the update. Appreciate it. And looking forward to getting some clarity on the timing of Trio. Obviously, it's a huge market, and a lot of the margins are very good, especially considering the significantly higher than the current product portfolio. So I think there's a massive opportunity there. Thanks for the update.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Tina. So unfortunately, Cameron Grimm from Microbix couldn't join us today, so I'll do the update for him. Microbix put out their fiscal Q3 numbers, I believe it was 2 weeks ago on the 17th. Is that right? The 12th, maybe? It was another record quarter, so that's multiple record quarters in a row. They had 5.5 million on the top line, so on track for a really good year. What was notable in the quarter, at least to me, was that they had strong growth in all their verticals, including the antigen side of the business, which is starting to see recovery post-pandemic. So I think that was up about 7%. VTM obviously is a big driver here going forward. And then the CAPS business is still doing very, very well. So an excellent quarter for them. They're fully cashed up. They did a raise in May. And they actually, Bruce Krugel, who does some paid for research for us and as well for Microbix, put out an update piece, which you can find on the Adelaide website as well as Microbix website, or you reach out and we'll send you a copy. So that's it for Microbix. And I believe up next we have Gary O'Connor from Moneta Gold, I believe the name is, because they just changed it. Hi, nice to see you.
Yes, good afternoon, Deborah. How are you?
I'm good. So you've got a name change, a consolidation. I think you just did a site visit. Do you want to give us a little bit of an update on what's going on?
Exactly. So we did a name change today. We're now known as Moneta Gold. We felt that more closely reflected who we are and what our main focus is moving forward. We kept the traditional Moneta name. It has a long association with gold mining in the Timmins camp, but we added the gold because of it's much better for marketing and and for search our algorithms online. We've done the consolidation that was announced today, so that's a 6-for-1. So that will help us get in front of a wider investment audience, a lot more retail, a lot more institutions will now be able to invest in the company. They'll be able to margin the stock. Before, with the lower share price, and we had over 550 million shares out, we felt it was worth doing the rollback, and we're very positive this will have a positive effect on the overall performance of the company. And correct, we had a very successful analyst site visit last week. We had 15 attendees. It was oversubscribed, and we had a lot of people at site. We managed to take them on a good tour of the assets from the very eastern part to all the way through the west, and everyone was quite impressed with the size, the scope, the progress we've made, both in the reinterpretation of the geology, the upside potential we have, the additional ability to continue to expand the resources. So we're very happy with the way that went.
Thanks, Gary. Can you give us a little bit of color on who was on the site visit? Was it mostly investors or sell side or combination?
It was an analyst site visit. So we had one site visit specifically for analysts. That was last Wednesday, and that was where we had the 15 attendees. Prior to that, we actually had a buy-side sell visit as well. So we've had a number of buy-side groups, investors making more one-off tours. We didn't have an organized tour. They've come individually, and we felt that was the best way to deal with, more of a one-on-one with people doing, more technical due diligence level site visits. So there's been a number of site visits, but they culminated in one large analyst site visit.
Yeah, well, it's good to see that you're increasing your capital markets exposure. I mean, after the amount of resources that you added over the past year, you still haven't really re-rated. So I'd like to see the stock, creep back up.
Yeah, we've held in well. We have not come off like, most of the index. Most people are down 50% over the last 6 months. We're actually up, and our trend is up. So we have had a lot of good buying, a lot of support. So we are getting that buying in the market and the liquidity, and so we're hoping to continue that. And we're seeing ourselves already be re-rated with more interest in the company, good analyst interest, and a lot of interest in people investing in the company from the the investment side. So we see this all very positive.
And can you remind me what your global resources are?
Right, so we have a global resource, 8.4 million ounces. That contains 5.6 million ounces open pit resources, 2.8 million ounces underground resources. So we have the, some good options there in regards to higher grade ore versus, lower grade open pit bulk tonnage, operations. We're currently drilling in the middle of, it's a 70,000 meter drill program. We have identified a number of areas where we have great potential to add to the resources and grow them. We've got some areas already drilled out, which we're modeling up for the resources, so that will add to our overall resource base. We've been putting out, a number of press releases recently to show the good upside potential at a number of the targets. We, Westaway, the new underground resource last year, the extensions of Windjammer South into the new discovery at halfway, that we see great upside there. We've actually connected Windjammer South to Southwest in the gap zone, so we'll be looking to model a very large new resource in that area as well. So yeah, a lot of things are happening on a lot of fronts, and we'll continue to have a good news flow for the remainder of the year from our very large drill program which is underway.
Well, sounds like you've been busy.
Yes, we have. We've more than doubled our workforce, our ability to to log, process, and assay core. So we've got a lot of new keen employees on board. We've got new facilities. it's been a very productive year, and we're continuing to push forward, and we'll finish that 70,000 meters by the end of September, so Q3 on time, and we'll look to get that core oil process and get the assays back and move ahead with our resource update.
Great. Well, lots of news coming. Look forward to seeing some of those results. And thanks for giving us the update today, Gary.
Yeah, no, thank you, Deborah. And thanks for the opportunity to speak on your program. I much appreciate it.
Maybe we'll meet in real life one day.
Exactly. Hopefully in the near future.
Thanks again. And up next, we have Cesar Gonzalez, CEO of Sailfish, who's going to give us a bit of an update.
Absolutely. So we finally sold the last 50% of the royalty on Tocantinzinho. That closed last week. It was announced in July. And the press release that announced the closure also commented on the strength of our balance sheet. You know, following the close, we had 13 million of cash, US, no debt, and we have a cash flowing asset now that's significant. We've always had some cash coming from El Compás in Mexico, but now we have close to 150,000 a month coming from San Albino, which is Mako's primary asset. And Akiba came on earlier and talked about some of the things going on there. So I won't go into too much detail, but I hope what the viewers take away from Akiba's presentation is that there is growth at San Albino. So it's a 3% stream, or it's a stream equivalent to a 3% NSR on the main San Albino mine, and then 2% on the area surrounding that mine for about 134.5 square kilometers. There are 2 new concessions that are not part of that 2%, but over time, I think that will be something that we can take a look at. So for the time being, Las Conchitas, which is the primary exploration target for Mako, is part of that 2%. So even though the cash flow today is 150,000 ounces, there's going to be growth from scaling up San Albino and then from expanding to Las Conchitas and beyond. So very excited about that. And then with regards to return of capital to shareholders, which we have been very aggressive on, we've been doing an NCIB. This is the 3rd year that we've been active on the NCIB. We were very active last week. As it turns out, we had a shareholder who was not very happy with the outcome of our sale on Tocantinzinho. He was one of the original vendors of that royalty to us, paid in cash and in shares. But we made some of our long-term shareholders very happy by taking that stock off of his hands at low levels. So what I'm learning as I go on in this business is that liquidity is very important, and we have long-term shareholders who can provide that. And we have the company, which is active on the NCIB, so that when we have a shareholder who's, in my opinion, acting irrationally, we can take advantage of that, as opposed to getting taken aback and having the momentum taken out of the stock. So that happened last week. And also in that press release, I mentioned that we're going to be taking a closer look at a dividend, something we talked about before. It's always been a goal of ours. Of the 20 or so royalty companies that are publicly traded focusing on precious metals, about 7 of them pay royalties, and we look forward to being part of that group. And I think people are going to be quite surprised when they see the yield, especially at these valuations, that dividend will mean to shareholders. This is not new to us. We have a controlling shareholder called Wexford Capital that has created a royalty company in the oil and gas space. And in that sector, big dividends are the norm. So we're okay taking whatever excess cash we have on the balance sheet and buying back stock. We've done that to the tune of now over 7 million shares. And we're also okay having a big dividend, which puts pressure on us to figure out how to make that dividend sustainable. That's my job. I'm happy to do so. Take that pressure and find the opportunities. So that's what's going on with Sailfish. If you have any questions, Deb, happy to answer them.
No, the only question I really had was around the dividend. Can you give a little bit more color in terms of what you're thinking, or should we wait for the press release on that one?
No, I can give some guidance. So we are looking to pay about $1 million a quarter. And you can't give a gross amount for a dividend. It has to be a per share. So we'll come out with, that'll work out to something like 1.25 cents US per share based on the shares outstanding. We're actively buying stock, so the share count keeps going down, but it'll be something in that neighborhood, and it'll be US dollar-based dividend. So even though our stock's quoted in Canadian dollars, we do have a US listing through the OTCQX, but the dividend will be in USD.
That's great. So will the dividend, so it's going to be an ongoing dividend. Will you ever have special dividends if you monetize more assets, or you just want a consistent flow of dividends?
It's a good question. Right now, as far as we can see, in terms of asset monetization, TZ was something we thought we could get a good price on. Obviously, we sold the first half to Metalla, the second half went to Cisco. For the time being, we're done monetizing assets. The stream and royalty on San Albino, they're coveted by us because we know the operations, we know the potential there. Spring Valley, I think once Waterton does something with that asset, there will be a market for the royalty. Today, I don't think that I know that we can't get the price that we want, so we hold on to it. We are actually, and it's funny you mentioned this, we are actually working on doing something with our silver-focused royalties. Inside of Sailfish, we actually have a silver asset that we're getting ready to spin out, and we've made a lot of progress on that. But we also have the a royalty on La Cigarra, which is run by Kootenay Silver, and El Compas, which is Endeavor Silver. And then we also have, through our relationship with Mako, a royalty on La Trinidad, which used to be owned by Mako, was sold to GR Silver. And we're looking at, can we do something with these silver royalties rather than just keeping them on our books, getting no value for them? We're always thinking about that. It's the reason why Gavilanes is getting spun out. It's the reason why we monetize TZ. So we're always looking to buy and sell. That's just our background. That's how we think.
Okay. And an update on the timeline for Gavilanes. You put out your 43-101. Where are we at in the process of potentially seeing a spin out?
Yeah, I think this has been an interesting summer. You're starting to see it through the volumes in some of these companies, the absence of some of the management teams. I think people, because they were locked up last summer, are really taking advantage of this summer. Getting feedback from the exchange has been a bit slow, but we're now starting to get some traction. We're starting to get back in dialogue with them. And so we're hoping definitely by the end of the year, we'll have this spin out completed. We're hoping to be able to do it in the third quarter. So that's the new goal. And I wish it was all in my control. We were able to put out the 43-101 on Gavilanes, which was a big step. That's out. That's out there. Commonwealth, we have a 43-101 that's been ready to go, but it just needs to be reviewed and approved so that it can be filed as well. And the plan still remains to take Gavilanes and Commonwealth, combine them together into a new company called Swordfish Silver Corp.
Great. Well, like I said at the beginning, you've had a lot of catalysts this year, but it looks like you still have some pretty big milestones to execute on in the back half of the year. So
absolutely. And we're always creating new milestones for ourselves, or at least targets.
Perfect. Well, nice catching up with you, Cesar. Thanks for the update.
Thanks, Deborah. And we have today with us for Sierra Madre Gold and Silver, Mr. Gregory Liller, COO and Chairman. Greg, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Vanessa.
Yeah, pleasure. Greg, so you finished the first 20 holes at Tepic. You went and working on La Tigra, from what I understand. Would you like to give us an update, please?
Sure. The drilling's been completed, like you said, at Tepic. We're just waiting on a few assays and some check work. And we're still continuing our trenching and mapping program there. So we're moving right along. At La Tigra, we just received our topo map yesterday. We've been mapping on satellite photos that go along with that. So that's all in place. And today I just received the plan for the beginning of our trenching program there. That'll be a prelude to drilling. We've elected not to drill until the rainy season's over. And they're getting quite a bit of rain there at both projects. Interestingly enough, at Tepic, it's actually exposing some new veins that we were unaware of before. So no, it's moving right along. We use that trenching work then to plan our drilling program. we're in the process of submitting permits for, well, I think it's an additional 230 some odd holes at Tepic, and then the initial drilling permit at La Tigra will be about the same. And my thinking is now, because assays are taking so long, labs are really backed up, that we'll probably bounce back and forth between the projects. I don't like offsetting holes without benefit of assay. You can lose a lot of money doing it that way. So we'll eat the mob, which shouldn't be too much, going back and forth, and that'll more than pay for blowing one drill hole. So no, we're hitting it heavy. We've got I think 4 geologists now at each project in rotation, so generating a lot of information.
Excellent. So the things you can't control, obviously, weather and the labs, or can you pay for rush jobs at the labs, or is that just going to blow the budget out of the water?
It's very expensive, and really lately when you've paid for a rush, it hasn't been much of a rush. So, and we're also doing some metallics at both projects. La Tigra especially is going to need a lot of metallic assay just because of the nature of the mineralization.
Super. So can you tell us again, Greg, remind us how the Tepic and La Tigra, being about 140K, I believe, from within each other, fit into your hub and spoke model, business model?
Oh, that's the, these are the first 2 spokes of the project. Our idea is to put together a group of projects all within, say, a couple hundred or so kilometers of each other, and then have them feed a central processing facility. The advantage to that is it gives you a lot of operational leeway, scheduling, mine development, all that becomes much easier at that point. You do have some additional costs in trucking, but it's really quite minimal as long as you have the grade to back it up.
And would you imagine, starting with a scalable style of approach in terms of starting small and then ramping up production? Would that be the idea?
Yes. I've been involved in building some very big mines, 12,000 tons a day of ore, a heap leach, 1,500 ton a day, 2,000 ton a day underground. It puts a lot of pressure on you to feed something that large. And if you build it scalable, you can always go up, but it's very difficult to scale back down. It's just a much more efficient way of doing things. And it's the way mining used to be done. You used your cash flow to scale up instead of having to put out more equity or go into debt.
That makes a lot of sense, Greg. And so rainy season generally stops back to drilling and keeping the wheels in motion for both projects. Generally end of September?
End of October.
Okay.
September and October can be the heaviest months. A lot of it's dependent upon the hurricane season, because we're down in the tropics, and a lot of times hurricanes will come into Cancun, Yucatan Peninsula, come across Mexico, and then pick up speed again and come up the coast. So it just depends on what the Atlantic storm season is like this year.
Right. Okay. Well, not to drone too much on the weather, but we definitely are looking at Sierra Madre continuing towards path to production. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, we're, like I said, we're actively working at both projects. Trenching programs well underway at Tepic. And I said today I just got the plan and approved it to begin trenching at La Tigra.
Okay. And La Tigra, is there any other color that you'd like to offer us on La Tigra, Greg?
It's one I've had my eye on for years. It's a significant historic district. John Waterman, back in the early 1900s, 1800s. He was a big name in Mexican mining then. He had a sizable operation there, but it's received no modern exploration work. As far as I'm aware, there's never been a hole drilled in the district.
All right.
So I'm quite enthusiastic about this one. And our relationship with IMSA is going very, very well. And we hope to show them that we're capable and then build on that relationship with some other projects.
That's key in our business for sure. Some positive relationships with some key people there. So we have Sierra Madre still has about 12 million in the bank, from what I understand, consolidating the region in Nayarit. And again, that clear path to production. Greg, have we missed anything today?
Well, I think that's pretty much covers it. So we've got a pretty simple but a complete business plan. So.
Right on. Well, we'll look for and wait for those assay results and the first news release on the drilling at Peak. And
yeah, that's imminent. So.
Okay, sounds great.
So last but not least, we have Unigold and CEO Joe Hamilton.
Oh, Deb, how are you? I'm very well.
Good. I'm good. They were talking about the weather in Mexico. Have you been impacted by what's going on in Haiti right now? The earthquake, the storms?
Not at all. And the storms that have come through, there were a couple of, pretty much direct hits of tropical storms. But, we're pretty far inland, so we don't suffer from any storm surge around the coastlines as the coastline would. And the area that we're working in tectonically is sort of a brick in the middle of a bunch of clay. It's really stable. The main faults, certainly the ones that register most of the earthquakes, are well away from our area. So really no effect to us at all. In 20 years, we've had to shut down for 2 days as a result of hurricanes. And those were, single day shutdowns, and then we just get back to work. So, even though the weather does change, it doesn't really affect us that much.
Okay, well, looking forward to getting a little bit of an update. You did a financing recently, so you're cashed up for your next phase of your drill program. Do you want to tell us what you've got planned?
Sure. I mean, that's probably the most recent thing we've done is we closed the financing in the middle of August, I guess about 2 weeks ago. It was about a $3.2 million financing. That gets us through to next year with hits most of the objectives that we want to do. Since the last time we talked, or certainly in this venue, we've done a number of things. We did file our technical reports, if you recall, in June. We brought Steve Haggerty on the board as well. Steve is a metallurgist. When he retired in 2018, he was Barrick's, chief metallurgist is the way to describe it. He was in charge of most of the processing plants. So very deep experience in metallurgy. Steve is starting to help us with the metallurgy at the sulfides, Candelones. We continued drilling up until about the middle of July when we brought the drills back for maintenance. Those are getting back out in the field. In the meantime, since January, we've been doing a lot of regional exploration and going out on a lot of those other targets. Remember that we've got 15 to 20 high priority regional targets that we want to look at. There's about 15 gold targets and about 5 copper targets. We started trenching on those in July, and in order to prioritize them, to decide which ones we want to drill first. So the plan for the rest of this year, which effectively kicks off at the beginning of September, is to keep 1 or 2 drills turning around Candelones. We want to expand the oxide mineralization there. We also want to add to the sulfide mineralization at Candelones, and that's really our bread and butter. There's 2.2 million ounces there that we want to be able to expand, and our current drilling shows that we can. And then we'll use the other 2 drills out on some of the regional targets to see if we can find another Candelones in some of the regional settings that we've got. And I think the probability is high, but until you put the terrible truth machine on it, you never know what's going to come out.
We had a recent round of drill results that were quite good. Do you want to talk a little bit about those? Yeah, sure.
In the most recent ones were 2 holes that were drilled to the west of the Candelones resource and to the west of the open pit outline. So these don't fall within the optimized pit or in the resource, although they're fairly close to it. We had 16 meters at about 10 grams of gold per ton. It's another epithermal system that we've encountered. We didn't know it was there, but a lot of the work that we've been doing over the last 6 months has been looking at the structural displacement of the mineralization at Candelones, and the resource model that we did this year really helped with that, the block model, and helped with the interpretation. So this intercept to the west of the pit was actually further north than we expected it, because the whole block there has been displaced to the north. But similar mineralization, very consistent grades. Everything in that interval ran between 4 grams and 22 grams, I think was the high. So very consistent mineralization, good silver as well. We've only got 2 holes on one section, so we're looking to expand that towards surface and along strike as well. So very encouraging. And then in June, just at the end of June, we put out a press release that showed that we had intercepted more mineralization to the east of the pit on the other side. And that certainly expanded the mineralization about 250 meters further to the east. So Candelones by no means is closed off. There's plenty of room to expand it. With 2.2 million ounces, we think we can start looking at production scenarios for that. But I don't think that's going to be the end of it. I think we'll be able to expand that over the course of the next few years as we continue to drill it.
And with 2.2 million ounces in your current market cap, what is that on an EV to ounce basis, approximately?
It's about $8 US an ounce.
That is incredibly cheap.
I believe so, but mind you, I'm long and I'm somewhat biased. But I think it is incredibly cheap, and I'm trying to understand why the market is discounting it to that extent. I think there's still some questions around permitting in the Dominican Republic, and those could be valid. Keep in mind that our strategy is a little bit different from what other people have tried. We're starting with a very small oxide project that has a very small environmental footprint. We've been working for a year now with the community consultations to get the community on side, and we have a great support from the local communities to get this project up and running. Most of the questions from the local communities come around groundwater and water quality. They come around noise and dust issues. But the most important question we get from the community is, when will the jobs be available? So I think we're going to be able to get permits relatively quickly. We hired Knight Piesold about 2 weeks ago to help us with the terms of reference, which we're talking to the government about for the environmental impact assessment for the oxide portion of the project. Once those terms are set, which is basically the table of contents for the report, then we'll move very quickly to complete that report. We're sort of shooting for the end of this year, but it just depends on to have the report finished. But then, of course, there'll be the community consultations, questions, and of course, resubmitting the report a number of times before it's finally accepted. But we're getting the government involved all the way through the process, as well as the community. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to shorten the permitting timeline quite significantly as compared to what other people have experienced.
Great. Well, it sounds like you have some pretty good catalysts this fall with the drilling. So you said you're looking to expand the sulfides, the oxides, and hit some regional targets. Is that sort of the strategy?
That's the strategy. That's what we've said we were going to do since the beginning of this year, is that in the third and fourth quarter of this year, we'd move out and start looking at some of the regional targets. And I guess the big win for shareholders for any company is usually through the drill bit. But we're a little bit unique in that we also have oxides and sulfides that we can start thinking about putting into production ourselves. They're not, they're projects that we can certainly finance and that we can certainly build in conjunction with the exploration. So for any investor that comes into Unigold at this point, in reality, all that the market cap's only really reflecting the oxide portion of the deposit. And, we're getting about $250 an ounce on the oxide portion of the deposit in market cap, but that means the sulfides and all the regional exploration is free.
Well, you got to love that optionality.
You do.
Anything that I missed, Joe?
I don't think so. That's basically the long and the short of it. Stay tuned. We'll have more drill results. And as everyone has mentioned off and on, One of the big things that is hampering the reporting of drill results is the fact that the labs are still choked up, and they're still taking some time to turn those around. But we're hopeful that we can get a solid pipeline going so we can get consistent results coming out.
Great. Well, look forward to those. Thanks for the update, Joe. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
See you soon.
You bet.
I don't know if anyone's going to join me on for the ending, but thank you all for participating. Thanks to the issuers who presented and gave us an update, and thanks for all the attendees. And look forward to next month when hopefully we have all our companies back on. So everyone have a good week.